will be coming. You might notice that I am leading solo tonight. So what that means is I would appreciate more than usual if people would join me in singing, in davening, in being expressive, so that I don't feel all out on my own. I think this is actually the first time that I've led. I know Gayanne has, but I think it's my first time having led solo on Zoom. So always a new moment, and so bear with me. And also please bear with Haley, because Haley is going to be doing a lot tonight, including introducing a number of videos, so that even though I'm leading alone, you'll have an opportunity to hear other voices and other music as well. As always, I want to invite us to lean into this platform. For me, that means using the chat wisely as a way to connect. For some of us, the chat can be distracting, but for others of us, it's a really nice way to add some of our special Torah that we want to, like if we have a comment, it'll be a way for us to wish each other a good Shabbos, either privately or collectively. There may be opportunities that I'll ask a question that people can respond to. And while I'll give more of an introduction later, it will be an opportunity for us to interact with our special guest this evening. Our special guest is Tracy Mcdaniel, a longtime friend and fellow activist here in Atlanta. She is an amazing trans human rights activist whose reach has been all throughout the United States and beyond. And really am honored in being able to welcome her. I'll share a little bit more about why it was meaningful to invite Tracy to help us celebrate Pride Shabbat. And I think the last thing I want to say is, you're like, Pride Shabbat, didn't we already do that? Has COVID compressed a year together? And we did decide to do a Pride Shabbat in June with most of the rest of the world, as we were observing the riot that was Stonewall, that was a part of our major human rights activism for LGBTQ folks. And Atlanta Pride has moved into October, largely over issues around, for people on YouTube who may be joining us not from Atlanta and don't know our story, I want to welcome you. But the reason why Pride in Atlanta is in October is because our major city park was getting destroyed. And so they moved the festivals throughout the year. In a lottery, we won October, I believe. We might have had two choices, but we ended up with October, and we asked to be as close to coming out day as possible. And so there is a tie that we are almost at National Coming Out Day. And so, for me, it's an important moment to continue, as Tracy believes, that to be visible and to stand up for our rights and fully live our lives authentically, which is a value that we all share here, is about saving lives. And so to celebrate our Pride and National Coming Out Day feels like a really important moment, and something that we should do as a synagogue. And who doesn't love two holidays, right? We can celebrate Pride. Maybe we'll make it a monthly event if that works for folks. So we're going to begin by lighting some Shabbat candles. And I'd like to invite Clarence to light the candles, and I'll lead the blessing. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Let's gather in the Shabbat light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'hitzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. Good Shabbos, everyone. And I just want to say, by way of intro, for me, observing this particular pride by working with our kind of community ally, Darcy Jarrett, partner of Amy Jarrett, who is both a reverend and someone who brings art into their theology. It feels really important, at this time, to recognize that when there's so much vulnerability in the world, that as we celebrate Pride, that we bring some additional attention and awareness to the importance of saying that trans lives matter. And specifically in the city of Atlanta, there's a history of how Black trans lives have been endangered. And that part of the work that I have been able to be enrolled in doing by some very incredible, powerful people has been on behalf of that kind of advocacy. But my Jewish roots, that go back into needing to provide trans advocacy started for me when at 24, I was one of the youngest members helping organize a national committee to honor Stonewall. And in that event, where we were celebrating the 25th anniversary, the first major argument that we had as a body was to what we were going to call the event. And they were calling the event something like Stonewall 25, the gay and lesbian movement. And there were folks, particularly Leslie Feinberg and Kate Bornstein, who were trans Jewish leaders, who amongst all of the trans folks were there, who stood up and said, this cannot stand. When we look at how this movement emerged, it was because of trans and gender non-conforming people who led this movement, and transgender must be in the name. And literally, we spent an entire weekend debating whether transgender, people were concerned it would make it too long. And I just remember at 24, at that point, only having a very limited exposure to transgender people, just feeling how unfair it was. It seemed so clear and so obvious to me, and I couldn't understand how my LGBT siblings didn't understand the importance. And for me, having read Leslie Feinberg in Stone Butch Blues, maybe the year before I happened to meet Leslie, I just felt in awe of the poise and the clarity of the argument, and felt like for me to be able to advocate for my own rights, that I had to better understand and link up with the transgender community and see that we are a family, and to understand that gender liberation benefits everybody. And if you've been with us during High Holy Days, I've been talking about active hope. And I think that I have learned what that means when Solnit speaks about people recognizing when they are on the margins or have limited choices in life, that being able to step out and act powerfully. Brene Brown says this as well. They are often the leaders in people who take hopeful action for survival and for the benefit of others. And that's really what I learned. And so it feels really important that we continue raising this up. Our congregation has often supported trans rights, and for us to continue to know that we have more learning to do, to understand that we're all on a journey and there's a process, but to be able to be open and welcoming and hopefully be a community that can better represent and invite trans members and gender nonconforming people to be a part of our community feels incredibly important at this time, at such a moment. And so that's one of the reasons why I invited Tracy. It's one of the reasons why that is how we came to decide what we were memorializing and what we were honoring in our art installation at our building. So I just wanted to start there and kind of as an official welcome for all of us. And I want to invite us to go into breakout rooms before we'll sing Shalom Aleichem, and then we'll go into breakout rooms together as we greet each other, introduce ourselves to people we don't know, welcome one another, and wish each other a good Pride Shabbos. And there's no specific question. I just want to make sure everyone has enough time to say hello and maybe share a little bit about what's been meaningful this week, and then we'll all come back together. You'll find Shalom Aleichem on page 13, and you'll find the link to the prayer book if you'd like to follow along there in the chat. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Ohon mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Ohon mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitchem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, mihi melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that is a prayer that speaks about welcoming the Shabbat messengers of peace and kindness. And so we embody those as we go into our breakout rooms and wish each other that kind of kindness and peace at this time. I look forward to joining back shortly after as we will receive a really meaningful treat on the other side. Welcome back, everyone. Folks on YouTube, if you want to put in Shabbat wishes for people, please feel free to do so. In a moment, we are going to be treated by listening to the Zazwick Quartet, and very appropriately for Pride, they will be playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So take a moment and enjoy our offering. That was awesome. We're going to move into some of our Psalms. We're going to turn to page 21 for Lechune Ranina. Lechune Ranina, Lechune Ranina, Lechune Ranina le'Adonai. Lechune Ranina, Lechune Ranina, Lechune Ranina le'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu Nikadma Fanav B'tohoda. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu Bizmirot Naria Lo. Lechuneranena, Lechuneranena, Lechuneranena Liadonai. Lechuneranena, Lechuneranena, Lechuneranena Liadonai. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu Nikadma Fanav B'tohoda. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu Bizmirot Naria Lo. So we find Lechadodi on page 41. And if we were in the building together, we often stand at the end. And if you want to stand tonight, in body or in spirit, please feel free. When we sing Lechadodi, friends address one another, encouraging all to come and greet the Shabbat together. And often the community stands at the end and faces the door, bowing as the Shabbat queen enters. One tradition notes that the congregation, therefore, is turning away from the leaders and from the front, which in more kind of traditional congregations might be the more prominent or the more wealthy members of the community. Not so true for us. It's the more brave people who don't mind standing or sitting in the splash zone who are often up front. But I like this idea that we turn and we bow towards the back, where some of the folks who historically were at the margins of the community may be found. And so on this Pride Shabbat, let us pause to consider the vulnerability of those who live their lives on the margins. And remember that we are called to recognize the image of the divine in every human individual. So tonight, let us turn to one another. Let us invite each other, new and old, to come and greet the Shabbat presence. And let us turn our circle inside out and call to all those around us. Come, my friends, let us greet the Shabbat. Join us. Help us carry the Shabbat presence to all we meet. Lehechadodi lihikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nehekabela. Lehechadodi lihikrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nehekabela. Lecha lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrachat kala, b'nei Shabbat nehekabela. Lecha dodi likrachat kala, b'nei Shabbat nehekabela. Shahamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, hishmianu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrachat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrachat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekahabela. Yahaminu smoho tifrotzi, v'et Adonai taritzi, ahal yad ish ben partzi, v'nismecha v'nahagila. Lecha lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrachat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekahabela. Lecha dodi likrachat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekahabela. Bohoi v'shalom ahateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha v'tzola, toch emunei am sigula, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha lecha dodi dodi, lecha dodi likrachat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrachat kala, p'nei Shabbat nekabela. So we continue on page 45 with the Chatzi Kaddish. For those who would like to stand in body or spirit, please do so. Yikadav yikada shemei Rabbi, Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, בחייכון ויומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן כחריב וימרו אמן. יהי שמי רבו מבורך לעולם ליומי עמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילן מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא וימרו אמן. We find the Baruch on page 57. Some will choose to continue to stand. This is an opportunity for us to reflect on the abundance of blessing that we have in our lives. If there's anything that felt particularly like a blessing this week, please feel free to share that in the chat or on YouTube so that we can experience one another's blessings together. Ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die. Baruchu et Adonai ha-mevorach ha-mevorach Baruch Adonai ha-mevorach le'olam va'ed Baruch Adonai ha-mevorach le'olam va'ed Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la la. So friends, so great to see your blessings. Just want to shout out to Gila Herman, who passed their nurse practitioner board. So Gila, congratulations, Mazel Tov. And invite us to continue to take in those blessings. As we do so, we move into this alternative Asher Bivaro, which comes from the prayer book of Shar Zahav, the LGBTQ founded synagogue in San Francisco. This was written by transgender Rabbi Reuben Kalman, and it's called Twilight People. I'd like to invite Nicole Sage to read it for us this evening. Good Shabbos, Nicole. Oh, yeah. You accidentally are muted again. You're still muted.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
Thank you so much for thinking of me and having me. Tonight is the 9th anniversary of me and my husband's wedding anniversary. And so we have a lot to celebrate.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. So I'm going to be reading to you now. Can you hear me? Okay. As the sun sinks and the colors of the day turn, we offer a blessing for the twilight. For twilight is neither day nor night, but in between. We are all twilight people. We can never be fully labeled or defined. We are many identities and loves and many genders and none. We are between roles at the intersection of histories or between place and place. We are crisscross paths of memory and destination, streaks of light swirled together. We're neither day nor night. We are both neither and all. Hang on one second. Whoop, geez, my daughter, sorry. Georgia had to get in on the action. I'm sorry. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties and soften our judgments and widen our vision. And may this in-between light illuminate our way to the God who transcends all the categories and definitions. May the in-between people who have come to pray be lifted into this twilight. We cannot always define. We can always say a blessing. Blessed are you, God of all, who brings on the twilight.
Amen.
This is by Rabbi Reuben Zellman from the transtorah.org.
Thank you, Nicole. And Georgia, good Shabbos. It's good to see you. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdihil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayacham, tamidim lo chalenu leolam vaed, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv v'aravim, Amen. We find Ahavat Olam on page 63. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, v'shakveinu v'kumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu, v'orech yameinu, uvahem yehege yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla. V'yavadka lo tatzur mimeni olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Amen. We close our eyes for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, bechol levavecha, v'chol nafshecha, uv'chol me'otecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavecha, hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, b'shivtecha v'veitecha, uv'leftecha v'derech, u'shavtecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ohot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot be'eineinecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'visharecha. We find our prayer for liberation, the Michamocha, on page 79. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha nedar bakodech, shnora tehilot, hosei fele, o hosei fele, ya la la la, hi la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, la, ya la la, hi la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Adonai yimloch leolam vaed, Adonai yimloch leolam vaed, Adonai yimloch leolam vaed, leolam vaed. Ya la la la, ha la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, la, ya la la, ha la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Ya la la la, ha la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, la, ya la la, ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. So the last blessing after the Shema is the one that invites us to be sheltered under the canopy of wholeness and peace. Literally the sukkah, the sukkah of peace. And so as we kind of inhabit this space, as we envision being held under the sukkah. I'm going to invite us to listen to this prayer and use that also as our moment of silent meditation that we normally flow into as we kind of look at what we need to move into that deeper place of peace and wholeness for ourselves this Shabbat. Such a touching video, and just to give a little bit of perspective, we started our next B'nai Mitzvah cohort, our Brit Mitzvah cohort, and Noah Robertson, the child that you saw at the very end, she is in that cohort. So from that small child to someone who's about to have their Brit Mitzvah, it is an amazing thing to kind of witness that journey together. So we're going to combine our moment of silence, link it to a prayer for healing for those in our community. I'm going to invite you to put the names of those that you are praying for a refuah shlema, a healing of body, of mind, and spirit, if you put their names in the chat. And I'll read the names that our community asks for us to remember together. Richard Adler, Hillary Bauer, Loretta Bernstein, Bob Bloomfield, Murray Chass, Judy Cohen, Richard Cohen, Estelle Green, Sylvia Gross, Ronit Elk, Jerry Falcon, Larry Huntsberry, Matthew Kantrowitz, Mark Copin, Arnie Corfine, Michael Lappin, Elaine Levin, Bob Levy, Robin Levy, Ann Lewis, Paulette LeCourciere, Tommy Macon, Melissa Macha, Esther Myers, Sharon Miller, Sarah Newmark, Aylin Olson, Dory Perling, Michael Perling, Ethan Post, Mario Ravri Sr., Alan Rosen, Gary Rosenthal, Judy Roth, Harris Rotman, Cheryl Siegel, Clifford Greenfield, David Singer, Orange Staple Wax, Elliot Stryker, Maria Talenti, Eve Turner, Dolly Wax, Shirley Weiss, Aline Tootie White, Phil Whiting, John Witherspoon, Beth Ann Budekant, Iris Bulls, Tom Reich, Deborah Krotenberg, Frank Noon, Patricia Noon Richardson, Jamie Robertson, Yankel Bott, Sarah, Mateo Battistini, Alton Reynolds, Alyssa Robin, Norma Harris, Kate Hamill, Janine Grasso Smith, Kim McCalla, Julio Quintana, Ellie Emmerich, Nancy Smith, Andrea Finn, Risa Wildermuth, Susan Bauer, and Enoch Bryant. So please join me in singing the Misha Berach, written by Debbie Friedman and Drora Settle. Misha Berach Ahavotenu Mekor HaBracha Imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Keni Hiratzon, may they have a full and complete healing. So friends, tonight, for the moment where we would traditionally have a Devar Torah, I'd like to invite us to attune our ears to our guest speaker. I'm going to invite Haley to bring us both onto Spotlight. Tracy Mcdaniel is a dear friend and a trans human rights activist, an advocate. And I know that when I show up at an event and she is there, that means that I'm in the right place. She always and unapologetically puts the T first and believes that our visibility saves lives, which I too agree, and which is why I've been proud to serve with her on the mayor's LGBT advisory council and specifically on the Trans Affairs Subcommittee. Tracy was born and raised in South Carolina. She credits her strength and determination to her family's unconditional love and support throughout her life, which also enabled her to have stepped knee-deep into advocacy. I think that's probably being humble. I think you have walked all in, Tracy, by becoming the first trans person invited in 2007 to deliver a keynote speech at the annual National Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday Celebration March and Rally. Tracy has marched on Washington, D.C. and lobbied the United States Congress in 2007 to support a fully inclusive Employment Non-Discrimination Act and increased HIV and AIDS funding. Her personal motto is show up and participate for equality, which attributed to her becoming the founder and the executive director of Juxtapose Center for Transformation, which is an advocacy, consulting, and social services referral organization specifically designed to empower the non-monolithic trans and gender non-conforming community. Juxtapose Center is also an anchoring organization for such an important organization of Trans Housing Atlanta, the program which provides supportive and emergency housing resources to homeless and marginalized trans and gender non-conforming people here in Atlanta. In 2013, Tracy published Transition Memoirs of a Transsexual Woman, which chronicle her unordinary life growing up trans in the South, and then eventually in 1990 escaping to Los Angeles, California to save her life from a domestically violent intimate partner relationship. Transition details her evolution working in the corporate world by day and then effortlessly transitioning into her performance artist alter ego destiny, your mistress of illusions, moonlighting by night to make ends meet. I'm not going to share everything in Tracy's bio because Tracy's going to share a lot about her life with us. But this next piece, I'm going to let Tracy share. But as I put on Facebook today, Tracy was at the right place at the right time to become a featured background singer for a legend. And so I can't wait to you figure out who that legend was. Of course, Tracy's work has been prolific here in Atlanta, having served on numerous committees and boards for the city. and human rights organizations upholding transgender and LGBTQ rights. So let us welcome Tracy and give her our full attention. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Josh. It is such an honor to be celebrating your high holy holidays with your congregation. So I want to say Shabbat Shalom to everyone, and thank you so much for having me to share my story. I must admit that sharing my story in 10 minutes, I was a little bit worried about that. So I figured what the best way to be able to tell my story and to get information across is to use some photos. So I went into my photo album and I put together a presentation for you. And I just want, I hope this is informative and it lets everyone know that we're human beings also. First off, I want to say that my presentation is entitled A Born Rebel Who Basically Stepped Out on Faith. It's a love letter to my mother and community. In order to give you an idea of what's happening within our community today, according to the Poverty Law Center's 2017 report, within the first 2 months of 2017, trans people, particularly trans women of color, were murdered at a rate of almost 1 per week. Now that is like astounding, and currently we're at numbers of 30 plus since the last time we checked. On the numbers of deceased trans people who have been murdered based on their gender identity and orientation. So as I reflect back on my my unordinary life growing up in South Carolina, I'm grateful for those many opportunities, and I'm happy to be able to share an abbreviated version of my story with your beautiful faces today. Been raised Baptist in South Carolina, was many challenges between my mother and I in reference to my gender identity and orientation, which contributed to the many battles for control that she and I had. So I recall as a result of that, of her being scared of what others would say, and she would force me to read these damnation to hell Bible verses about condemning homosexuality. And as far as I was concerned, those verses had nothing to do with me because I didn't identify as such. I didn't identify as homosexual. Although I didn't know the terminology transgender non-conforming at that time, I was quite sure that I was not a homosexual or gay as those Bible verses insinuated. So thankfully, my mother and I, we're at a point now where she understands that I am who I am, and she loves me and she accepts me 100%. But before that, you know, we had those challenges, and I wish that at the time that I had known about St. Matthew 19, which she and I later on discussed, and we both came to a mutual understanding. So what I love so much about St. Matthew 19:12 is that it says, not everyone can accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were born that way, and there are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuch by others. And there are eunuchs who chose to live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The one who can accept this should accept it. That's how I mostly identify. I know it's a biblical reference to trans and gender non-conforming people, but that more suited who I am. And this is a part of the Bible that, you know, I use as my sword and shield because we've been beaten down so long and about the Bible says this and the Bible says that. The Bible says a whole bunch of things that we which is why I have my own personal relationship with my Creator. I don't have to go through anyone else. I can get all my questions answered through my own personal relationship. So this is my sword and shield that I use to walk through this life, this thing we call life every day. Now, we can't discuss who I am without first talking about my foundation. My mother always encouraged my brother and I to be leaders, not followers. She was my role model. She was my shero. Although we had our battles for control, I fashioned myself. I get my hard work and my independence from my mother there. And everything that she's done during those times, I realized, and we've had conversations later, that she did the best that she knew how. And she was afraid. She was afraid for my life. She was afraid for my well-being. So she used those Bible verses to try to scare me straight, which didn't happen. However, with maturity and understanding and growth, I understand that she did the best that she could. And she was more concerned about my life and how society would treat her cub. Now, I believe that I was a rebel at birth, being born in the height of the civil rights movement, 2 years before the 1969 Stonewall riots. I was a rebel when I first started to rebel and run away at the age of 7 years old, which would be many other runaways in my experiences growing up. And this window here at the bottom picture, that's the window where my grandmother used to live, where my aunt caught me kissing a boy during my teens. So I was out there, and I was independent, and I knew who I was, and I wasn't going to let anyone tell me differently. So I remember, praying to God, please, God, let me be old enough to take care of myself, and I can live myself. I can do what I want. I can be who I am. So my 18th birthday and graduation presented me an opportunity to have some freedom and to live authentically. Another opportunity that was presented during my teens was a summer job where on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where it turned into 2 years because I wasn't ready to go back home. So one day, one Friday after work, I decided to go into JCPenney's because I wanted to get an outfit to wear out to the offshore drilling company. I don't know if you're familiar with offshore, but it was a place to be during that time in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And when I went into the women's department, that was that. I never went back. So I transitioned on my job. I started my job at a company called Shrimp and Company, a restaurant called Shrimp and Company. And 2 weeks later, I transitioned and I started living full-time as female, which I had an Italian boss named Rocky. He had no issues. Everyone embraced me. I had no challenges with my coworkers. We were all like a family.
Tracy,
So,
I don't mean to interrupt you. You haven't shared your screen, so we haven't been able to see the pictures.
oh, wow. I
Uh,
thought it was already sharing. I'm so
no.
sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. So take your time.
Hold on, let me see what I can do here.
Yeah. If you look at
Okay.
the bottom.
Okay, can you see everything now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. But yes, let me go back.
Totally
'Cause
happens.
I want you to see my beautiful mother, my sword and shield. This is my beautiful mother bear who taught me everything, who's my hero. This is the window where my aunt caught me kissing the boy, when I was in my teens. So I was always attracted to boys, no matter what. And so as I was saying, is everyone still able to see everything okay?
100%
Okay, perfect.
with you.
So my 18th birthday and graduation presented an opportunity for me to have some freedom and to live authentically. So like I said, I got a summer job in Myrtle Beach. I transitioned on my job after going to JCPenney's and shopping in the women's department and never going back. So at a certain point, all of my friends, they returned home. Some were missing, were homesick, and they were just ready to go. I wasn't ready to return home yet because I'd gotten the taste of freedom and I'd gotten the taste of being on my own. And I figured, well, I was paying my own bills. And when I was in Job Corps, everyone used to talk about GA. After finishing the courses, everyone was talking about going to GA. So I said, GA, Georgia. So I figured, well, let me give Georgia a try because I definitely wasn't ready to go back home yet. So I got on the Greyhound bus, didn't know anyone, didn't have any idea what was happening in Georgia. I just knew, I said a prayer to God. I said, God, I know you're with me, so this isn't where I'm supposed to be. I know that you will take care of me and send me where I need to be. So when I got arrived in Georgia off on the Greyhound bus in '88, there was a cab driver when I got off the bus. He took me to a safe place where I could be safe because I specifically asked him, I want to be in a safe place. So he took me to a safe place. Then he volunteered to come back later because he wanted me to get to know the city. He picked me up, no charge, nothing, took me to Midtown, and he gave me an opportunity to see Midtown. And he told me, well, you do whatever you want to do. Whenever you're ready to go back, you just call me and I'll come pick you up, no problem. So I went into the back streets for the first time. That's where I saw Tommy Ross. And I was so inspired at her beauty and her entertainment. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do what she was doing. So I started to enter talent shows and started joining different shows, Crazy Rays, Lipsticks, Backstreet. So I started performing, and I moonlight during the day as a cashier, and then I worked at night on the stage, which is where I met my best friend, the one here, whose leg is up on the table. Her name is Tara Holiday. We met over 30 years ago. We're still best friends today. At the time I met her, I had my dog Goldie. That was my girl. And so I enjoyed my 2 years in Atlanta. However, I experienced 2 different domestic abuse situations. I always knew that I wasn't going to be in a relationship with someone who would put their hands on me and their professor love me. And then I have to, because you're not going to just hit on me and I'm not going to fight back. So I knew it would be tragic. So I had to do something different. So at the time, I knew the last relationship that I was in, I knew that I needed to get as far away as possible, because if I did not, we'd still go through the same cycle and I'd end up hurt him defending myself. So I thought about leaving. I knew I had to get miles and miles away. So I was thinking about either Paris, France, or Los Angeles. So Los Angeles won out. I got my bus ticket again, pretended that we were going to get back together, and I left without letting him know. City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, 1990. I was living my best life. When I moved here, didn't know anyone here, didn't have any idea what was going on. I just said a prayer against the Lord. I know you're with me. Please watch over me and keep me safe. So I at some point, I did what some domestic survivors do. They go back to their abuser. I made the mistake of going back. I figured, well, living in a different city, different state, different environment, different everything, maybe we could do it better. Made the mistake, called him, tried to do okay for the first few weeks, and then he went back to himself. He tried to control me, didn't want me to go to work, all kinds of crazy stuff. He attacked me. I fought back. Thankfully, my neighbor, who's right here, her name is Alma. I love her so much. She rented the apartment to me when I first moved there, and she saved my life, I believe, because she was aware of the situation, and she saw through the window that he was attacking me and choking me on the floor. So she called the police, saved my life. And I knew right then and there that once this is over, I wasn't going back. It was a matter of life or death for me. So I had to give it up and turn that relationship loose, which is what I did. And I figured, well, what is it about me that's attracting these types of people, these types of abusive men that I can't depend on? So I went and got personal counseling, because I really wanted to get those answers about myself so that I can make some changes. And in the middle of personal counseling, that's when the relationship between my mother and I started to rebuild, because in that process, I was encouraged by my counselor to express to my mother the way that I felt being raised and abuse that I experienced growing up. There was no way that I was going to express this to her over the phone, so I decided to write her a letter. After the counseling today, I wrote the letter, wrote it out. Instead of waiting, I said, once I finished writing the letter, I took it to the Dropbox and dropped it in because I didn't want to lose my nerves. So she responded with a 5-page letter and apologized and understood how I felt and apologized for the way that she handled things, which has changed our life. I'm her daughter and there's nothing to it. And if anybody else has anything to say about it, they gotta keep it to themselves. So after that, after getting out of that relationship, getting my counseling, I went on with my work. I focused on doing what I was able to control, which was work and take care of myself. My alter ego, Destiny or Mistress of Illusions, when I first arrived in California, I asked a cab driver about entertainment spots. So he told me about Club 7969. So that Wednesday, he told me how to get there, every bus, whatever I needed to go. So that Tuesday I went, took the bus to Hollywood Boulevard, went to the club, 767969, asked the manager for an audition. That weekend, that Friday, I auditioned for the cast. I was booked, so I was making some money. I was cool. I had my employment together. I didn't have to worry about having money to do what I needed to do. So in that process, I started moonlighting because another kindness of another stranger. I was on Hollywood Boulevard shopping for costumes and accessories for a show that I had coming up that weekend. So I was waiting at the lights across the street. This tall stranger comes and stands next to me. He finally says something and he asked me if I would be interested in having lunch with him. I was like, well, who is this and what does he want? It's the daytime. I'm not in a rush. The restaurant was right there. So I said, sure. I agreed to have lunch with him. And in that process, he was telling me about his company, Dolan Micro Consulting. His name was Jim Dolan. I will never forget it. And so I wasn't expecting him to offer me a job. He told me he was looking for a manager for his business. Asked if I was interested, and I said, sure. He didn't ask for my resume. He didn't ask for my experience. He didn't ask for anything. He just told me, start on Monday, that upcoming Monday. And in that process, he took out his checkbook and wrote me an advance on my salary, because I told him during that process, during our conversation, that I was saving. I was staying with a friend. I was saving, trying to get my own apartment, et cetera, et cetera. So he was generous enough to give me that the check, and it cashed. You know, when I took it to the place it cashed, it cashed. And so I feel like I was in the right place at the right time during that time, because I had an opportunity to be a featured backup singer for a living legend and icon, as far as I'm concerned, Ms. Dinah Ross. And during that process of shooting that video, I Will Survive music video, I was chosen by the producers to do stand-in rehearsals for Ms. Ross. So not only because I featured in her video, I was also her rehearsal stand-in for that video. And another amazing opportunity that I received was when I was featured in a VH1 miniseries as a snowflake girl, The Jacksons and American Dream. So it was an adventure. I was living my life. I was paying my bills, and I was doing me, living my best life. And so eventually in 96, I met someone. Well, let me go back. When I first started working at Peanuts, I was introduced to my spouse now. His name is Kevin. And because I was at the tail end of that relationship and I didn't want to get involved with anyone else until that was completely done, we met that night, introduced myself, was kind, cordial, and then left. 5 years later, we meet again at the same place. I wasn't working there then. I was just there to visit some friends and hang out with them to watch their show. So met the man of my dreams. I let him know from the get-go, I'm not dealing with no domestic violence. I need some financial insecurity, and I need to be able to depend on him. Although it wasn't a fairy tale, you know, I had to insist on him getting personal counseling for his anger management and his childhood challenges. So through hard work and commitment and a healthy dose of marriage counseling, we've been together for 25 years now, going on 26 years. So that was a blessing for me. I was living my heterosexual life. You know, I was doing my thing. I married the man of my dreams after eloping to Vegas, and I was just living my life. And because I believe that all trans lives matter, and currently the dignity and the human dignity and equal rights of trans people are under threat due to military ban, rescinding of medical protections, bathroom restriction bills, and discrimination in the workplace. I could not just sit back and live my life without doing something to make a difference, because the human and civil rights legislation is a vital component to us trans people obtaining liberty and justice. Trans and gender nonconforming people and non-binary people face systemic and deeply rooted discrimination in seeking affordable housing and quality health care. And we encounter all kinds of inequities when we're seeking gainful employment at the rates higher than other community members. So I wanted to do something. I wanted to not just sit back on the side and watch what was going on and say, oh, that's horrible. And when I saw that trans people, specifically Black trans people, were being denied access to shelters, that's when I really started to use my voice. And that's when I really felt that I needed to be comfortable with saying I am a trans woman in public because I lived my heterosexual life. My neighbors, everybody stay out of my business. I don't care. But I was able to become comfortable with saying or expressing that I am trans in public because I needed to use my voice to fight for trans women who were trying to be banned from Midtown by local security agencies there. And the unprecedented trans murders that we've been facing. And I wanted to use my voice to fight for human and civil rights protections for all of us, not just for a few of us. So I decided that, well, I can't sit back and complain. I need to do something to make a difference, which is why I established Juxtapose Center to add credibility to my community service, which, as Rabbi said earlier, Juxtapose Center is an anchoring organization for Trans Housing Atlanta program, which is a very necessary resource in our community. So it was only by God's grace and mercy and my creator putting me in the perfect place at the right time that I received an opportunity to become an appointed city official. Our former mayor, Kasim Reed, nominated me in 2016. And although that appointment process was really extremely challenging, with ups and downs and phobias, I was later on encouraged to seek leadership. And I'm now serving my second 3-year term representing our current mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and I was unanimously elected to vice chair in 2020. I am also the first recipient of any of the board members who've received the Ivory Lee Young Leadership Award from the Citizen Review Board. And I believe that it's my responsibility to make the pathway smoother for the next person. And for myself to represent as well, because I don't want people to say, well, this is what Tracy did. She's a trans person. We don't want that. I go every day with that on my brain because I don't want to be the first and the only trans person. I want there to be many more trans people to come after me to represent such an important policing oversight board here in Georgia. Now, I also believe that I was a born advocate. In 2007, I lobbied the United States Congress, and I also briefed in 2015 the Obama administration White House on employment inequities and how those inequities affect trans women of color. In 2019, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, I joined her advisory council. And I'm also currently serving a second term on the council. And in 2020, right before the pandemic and everything that went down with quarantining, I received a resolution from Representative Clark Cannon and the Georgia House of Representatives for the work in the community service that I do within our community. So I'm really, really, really excited and feel that I'm blessed to be able to represent us in that manner. I also believe that it's important for us to tell our own stories because for so long, our stories have been twisted and have been changed, and the truth hasn't been told about who we are. We're more than the Jerry Springer stereotypes, and which is why I feel that it's important for us to tell our own stories. And I published my memoir, and I also completed the Citizen Police Academy so that I can have some education about what's really going on, so I can bring that experience to the Citizen Review Board, so I can sort of know what I'm talking about in reference to community policing. None of this would be possible without my North Star. I'm so thankful that my mother never kicked me out of our family home, because I was a hot mess. I thought I knew everything in my teens. I thought I was grown. I was a teenager dating 20-something-year-old guys. So I am so thankful that she had the patience and she never threw me out, regardless of how many challenges that we faced. I always had a soft place to land, no matter what. And I'm also thankful that she's here to witness my evolution, because it was a struggle, and I must admit that I gave her a hard time, but I'm so thankful for my North Star, and I'm thankful for my mother and the experiences that she's instilled in us, my brother and I. So with all that said, this is an opportunity for anyone to ask any questions. I hope this was informative. I hope you enjoyed it. So are there any questions?
And I'll just add, folks, if you put your questions in the chat, I told Tracy that I would take a look at them, and we'll have an opportunity to, and Tracy, I just want to let you know that many people throughout were just sharing how much they appreciated you sharing your story and how inspiring it was and how important it is for you to continue to share your story. So just know that there's a lot of love and support for what you've been doing, and appreciation and admiration of your life story.
And it's received. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. So right now I'm getting a lot of thank yous. I don't see any questions just yet. I think, so if there is a question, what I do want to bring is, so many people think that being an activist or an advocate is somehow out of their reach, and this opportunity to kind of claim one's voice and use one's sense of agency. I'm wondering if you could just talk a moment about, you talk about having an awareness of needing to speak out and support, but can you tell us a little bit about how that light bulb went off and how you took the steps to be such a powerful advocate?
Well, it literally was when I was informed and I heard that trans people were being denied access to homeless shelters. And I could not believe it. I mean, I was comfortable. We're not rich. However, if I was in that position many years ago, I was able to stay at a shelter and I didn't have a problem. However, I didn't want to just be able to sit here and say, well, that's horrible. But I wanted to find out what I can do about it. And that's when I started the process of establishing JCT. I did the 501c3 application, did all of that stuff myself because I was determined to do it. And I didn't want more trans people to be denied access to a homeless shelter in their time of need. That's the least thing that we would expect to be there. So
sure. No, I appreciate that. And one of the things I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, if you'll stop sharing so that we can see you to answer this last question. So somebody asked if you could share. I'm going to ask you a couple questions altogether. Are there a few things that you feel that straight or cisgender people could do to be allies and sources of support? And is there any way, you could send it to me, and I would be happy to send it out this week, to share with folks how they can connect with Juxtaposed or the Trans Housing Action Project?
Yes, I'm trying to stop sharing my screen, but it's not.
I stopped you, Tracy.
Okay,
no worries.
perfect.
I gotcha.
Okay, so as far as creating safe spaces for trans people and gender non-conforming, non-binary people, and being a voice and ally for us, the first thing is don't be weird. We're human beings just like everyone else is. Treat us the way that you want to be treated. There's nothing, we're not aliens from outer space, we're human beings, so don't be weird. And stop making assumptions about someone's gender identity based upon their appearance. Just because a person is appearing one way in your sight, that doesn't mean they identify as such. So be careful, and if you're not sure, ask, and we'll be more than happy to. But don't do it and try to embarrass us, And words matter. Use gender neutral affirmative language. If you're not sure, use they, them, and ask the person, and that person will be more than happy to let you know what's going on with them, especially if you're doing it in a manner that's not abusive. Advocate for gender neutral restrooms. We've been having issues with having to go to the restroom in peace. People want to police us going into restrooms, so where else are we supposed to go? It doesn't make any sense. And don't tolerate transphobic jokes, because if you laugh at them and if you're sitting there not saying anything, you're just as complicit as the person making the joke. And I would like for people to stop questioning our experience and our right to exist, our right to be here.
Hanson?
We're just gender non-conforming people. We're just human beings when you take the label away like everyone else. So why is it that people are continuously questioning why we're here and acting like we just got here? So those are some ways that we can support and make safe spaces for trans and gender non-conforming people, non-binary people.
So I appreciate that, and I'll make sure that you and I connect so that I can send out information. We have trans and gender nonconforming people who are part of our community. Some are wanting to be able to connect for personal reasons, and some of us are wanting to connect so that we can continue to be better allies.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think for us as a community, part of what I want to say is being a part of diverse community is willing to be on a learning journey together,
Yes.
and that, have some humility that sometimes we might make a mistake, but to not let our fear or our shame of making a mistake prevent us from actually cleaning it up and trying again in a
Yes.
different way.
Mistakes are human. We all make
Yes.
mistakes.
Right. And I think that there are ways where we can be more committed and diligent to honor people in their gender identities and recognize, if there's something that's a discomfort within us, to be able to kind of work on that. And that to me is the benefit of moving beyond just being in exclusive communities. We all need communities for our own nourishment and support where we can just breathe. But we also need communities like this where we come together with different orientations, different gender identities, so that we can figure out how to live in harmony in a place of, I would say that as I've grown on my journey, not only is my experience of my transgender siblings to be not aliens and ordinary people, but they've also been very extraordinary people. I feel like I have learned a great deal about how to navigate and what it means to survive with the most kind of positive outlook in some of the harshest conditions.
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate what I've personally learned.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Want to give you some of our community love as we begin to wrap up our services. And Tom Downs is going to offer some announcements this evening.
Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach, and Happy Pride, and welcome. We're glad to host so many friends from around Atlanta and all around the country to our virtual services. Our regular daily and weekly gatherings continue in the coming week. Mindful Moments is at 8:45 each weekday. Please join us. You could finish your day with our 10-minute minion at 7:45. This Monday, Rabbi G will be leading a Torah study at noon. The CBH board has begun meeting on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 5:30 p.m. Our next meeting will be this Tuesday, October 13th. We have a number of virtual Sukkot and Simchat Torah programs planned. There will be an online team game tonight, Sukkah, at 8:30 p.m. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., Rabbi Gottfried will lead a Yizkor service. Be sure to log on to CBH's famous storytelling event, The Locust, tomorrow, October 10th at 8 p.m. We will have 5 fabulous stories centered around the books of the Torah to celebrate Simchat Torah. Our CBH musicians will be making an appearance too. Don't miss this event. If you did not have an opportunity to make your high holiday donation, it is not too late. We know we experienced some downtime on our website during the high holidays. If you were unable to get to our website link, to donate through the CBH High Holiday campaign, you can do so now. You can go to, and this is a long website, so I'll repeat it, www.donatecbh.com/donate. Again, that's www.donatecbh.com/donate to make your donation. Just before the service, I checked our website, and you can still go on our website to the donate link at the top of the page and also make a donation there. Members, you can expect a call from one of our CBH prospectors about the upcoming CBH Go Rush fundraiser. We know that you are probably getting a lot of calls about the upcoming election, but this is one call you don't want to screen. As always, for a few view of all our offerings, please visit the Cbh calendar on our website. We are constantly posting new events and services, so please check often to stay up to date. We have a whole section on the website dedicated to COVID resources and responses. This is where you can find links to all public CBH Zoom gatherings, as well as links to practical and financial resources and spiritual mental health resources. Go to the CBH website, which is congregation.haverim.org, and you will see it in the main navigation at the top, COVID Central. And it's good to see all these faces tonight, and great service, great vibe.
Thank you, Tom. I just in terms of the website, it's .org instead of .com. Just not a big deal. And for folks who may not know what a Yizkor service is, it's a service where we honor those who have died. So if there's a loved one that you want to remember, I invite you to come to our morning service tomorrow, led by Rabbi Gottfried. We're going to, we're a little bit over on time, and so I'm going to invite us to kind of move towards the conclusion of the service. We'll say the prayer for the end of hiding together. You'll find that in the chat. So please join me in saying this prayer. As LGBTQ Jews, we are aware of the loss of integrity we suffer due to the pressures of the larger society. We often feel forced into a dishonest presentation of ourselves to ourselves and others. The LGBTQ individuals who feel they must pretend to be something that they are not. The Jews who feel they must be alienated from their tradition and community to enlarge our acceptance. Both are victims of a theft of identity and integrity committed by the sexual, gender identifying, or religious majority. Creator of the universe, we ask that our hiding draw to an end, that we no longer feel we have to pretend, to promise falsely, to renounce ourselves, and that our fullest creative expression as Jews and as lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, and queer people be among the blessings you bestow upon us. And so I'm gonna indulge one of our members. I know that we are running a little bit over at this moment. But it feels like there's some important information that we can glean. And so, Bob, I am unmuting you. And Tracy, and I don't see Tracy right now.
I see Tracy on my screen. She's
okay, great.
Here.
Oh, great. You jump spaces on my where. Bob, speaking of this prayer that talks about being out, there is also this understanding of wanting to know what it means to pass, and want to invite Bob to share his question a little bit more clearly.
Okay, Rabbi, you know that I knew Kate Bornstein when we were in college together.
Yes.
And Kate, in her book, Gender Outlaw, which I learned so much from, wrote how, on the one hand, it was seen to be a great success for a transsexual woman to be able to pass, and that being able to pass, therefore, could be destructive of community because nobody knew who the other one was, and you maybe didn't want to be out to anybody. And now we live in a time when maybe it's easier to be out, but to be visible like that can make a person more likely to be the victim of violence. And so try to combine the ability to be out and proud and the ability to be free from violence. How does that work with somebody who, like I say, if you want to be able to, not just to pass down the street, but you don't want people looking at you like somebody, oh, we know what she used to be. How does that all fit for you,
Well,
for others?
The ability, the privilege that I call passing is a double-edged sword. Because like you say, most of us, we want to go on with our lives. We don't want to be ridiculed. We don't want to be pointed at. We don't want all kinds of crazy slurs, which is the ultimate goal of most trans and gender non-conforming people. However, if we're not visible, if we're not out there, if we're not using our voices to change policy, to make sure there is hate crimes legislation that includes us, to make sure there's local legislation that's protecting us from discrimination, we're not going to get anywhere. So I understand people who want to live stealth, as some call it, and to just go on with their lives. They don't want to have anything to do with it. That's not who I am. I chose to be able to come out and say I'm trans in the public, and I chose to use my voice because that's just who I am. I just can't sit back on the sidelines. No, I don't blame anyone for their choices, but it's just what I've chosen to do, because I feel if we're not at the table, then our voices, our needs are not addressed. So I think it's very important for us to be visible because it saves lives, in my opinion.
Thank you, Tracy. Absolutely. And I think that as an ally, it's one of the reasons why I want to be able to, since it's not completely safe always for me to be out, it is often far more safe. And so I want to be able to use my privilege to be able to stand with people so that they can more comfortably come out and know they have supports.
Yeah.
That is why I'm committed to being a trans and gender nonconforming activist. So I appreciate the risks you take, and I want to support your risk taking so that others might be able to take risks for themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
So friends, we're going to conclude our service with Mourner's Kaddish. We find Mourner's Kaddish on page 131. I invite you to put the names on in the chat. So we honor their memories. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing. Yidkadal v'yidkada shemei Rabba, Amen. V'alma divra chirute v'amlich malchute. V'chaye chon uvyome chon uvchaye dachol Beit Yisrael. B'gala v'izman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam omei amaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'pa'ar v'tromam v'yitnaseh. V'tadar v'taleh v'talal shmei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehesh lama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. And so, while I do want to invoke the peace that is bestowed on the heights be bestowed upon all of us, all of the people of Israel and the entire world, instead of closing with Oseh Shalom this evening, I was wondering if we would want to see the I Will Survive Diana Ross video that Tracy Mcdaniel was a part of. So I'm going to invite Haley to bring it on so that we can close with I Will Survive. But this means you'll have to dance. I'm going to be watching that strip across the room as we dance it out tonight. Shabbat Shalom. Once again, only a Beit Haverim, but we end our services with I Will Survive, Diana Ross and Tracy Mcdaniel and RuPaul. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank
Shabbat
you so
Shalom.
much.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride,
Shabbat
everyone.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And a Guten Shabbos for all of you Sephardim and Ashkenazim out there. A Guten Shabbos.